And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7th day of April. Well, we are striding along into April as well. Well, today the temperature is 24 degrees and partly sunny. It feels a little bit warmer than that. You know why? Because the wind's not there. So, you know, the wind factor, the chill factor, which was there this morning, is not there around this time of the day. So it's wonderful to have your company once again today. We will go through all our news, and then we'll finish off with our daily India report, which is brought to you by the PIOTV. Well, right now, let's get on to the news. As we know, that the Prime Minister is on the election trail. Still no dates for the election, but he's out on the campaign trail. Now, when he was in Newcastle, he did not get a very, very flurried reception, but he was met with fury.
You work it out, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for 5 years. What's that work out? That's how much money I've saved the government.
Well, look, I'm happy to pass it.
Hey, you bring your mobs up and you don't even return the call.
You've come here to...
I don't give a about you. You're getting... Hey, I'm paying a death tax every week. Remember you went to the last election taxes? Well, I'm paying it because I've taken 200 out of my pension every week.
This is what we should do. You've raised two very important issues, one on an immigration matter and one on your...
Yes.
So let's sit down with one of my team.
All right. Now, who can I contact tomorrow?
Yeah, you can sit down with
Hey,
right
I'm doing
now.
this before the election, mate, because this is two promises that you made. You know another promise that you made?
Okay, well, look, we've had quite a chat.
Hey, yeah, no, you know, you're going to have an integrity commission. Hey, I've been to welfare rights, everything. You got the foxes looking after the hen houses.
Jack is going to sit down with you. Jack is going to...
What? Yeah.
Jack works for me.
Hey, you better do something. I don't care.
Wow, there's some narcissists there. Well, he really tried to get his point across, didn't he? Well, he had his opportunity and the time, and he was not going to miss that. Well, right now, we're still on the Prime Minister in the news. Prime Minister is rejecting the flood funding for Queensland as per this ABC report.
Francisco Klobuchar has lived through two floods in just over a decade, but after rebuilding from the 2011 deluge, he doesn't know if he can handle the pain again.
That's money, emotion, stress.
He wants to be part of a home buyback scheme that's now in limbo after the Prime Minister rejected calls to split the cost of a $740 million package with the state government. The program would give flood victims the option to retrofit, raise or sell back their home.
Yeah, it is disappointing.
The state government's crying foul and slinging mud.
This is the highest level of disrespect for Queenslanders.
And with a federal election imminent,
he has made the political calculation that he does not need the votes of flood-impacted families in this state.
Last month, the state government publicly appealed to the Prime Minister for the Commonwealth to pay for half the scheme. In a reply letter sent yesterday, Mr Morrison says the federal government has already committed almost $1 billion for Queensland and agreed to split a $30 million clean-up package. But he's declined to chip in for the home buyback scheme, saying it's not a Commonwealth responsibility.
The requests they've made under these programs go outside of the scope of what the normal arrangements are for flood responses, and so that's where state governments have to step up.
The acting Premier disagrees.
It is not a state government responsibility. This is a national responsibility.
I'm not looking to get into any disagreement with the state government.
So they're just whingers, are they?
Well,
they're
look,
just whinging.
Well, I think we've seen over some time now a real politicisation, and it's very unfortunate.
This was always an ambitious funding package pitched by the state, but now faced with half the money it wanted, the government says it'll go back to the drawing board on how it's used.
We will continue with a program. We'll have to reconsider what we can do, but it just won't go as far. And that's that we've got a win for the people who live in Goodna and other parts of Queensland who've been impacted by a terrible flooding event. And you've only got to talk to our friends here, our fellow Queenslanders, to hear from them and feel the emotion of what they've had to go through and suffer through another flooding event. So today I'm very pleased that the Prime Minister has committed to match our funding to support resilience and recovery program that we are putting together as a state. As I said to the residents, this is a nation-leading program. There has never been a resilience and recovery program of this type ever put together. It is regrettable, I must say, that it took so long for the Prime Minister to act. It took him 3 weeks to consider our proposal, a big proposal, but a critically important proposal for people in Enid Street and other parts of the state. In 36 hours after the Prime Minister said no, he's now said yes. And so that is a great credit to the strength of Queenslanders, people that I've met here today, people who live in this community, who are still putting their homes and their lives back together after a terrible flooding event. And so I want to thank them for their strength and resilience. They represent the best of Queensland. We are tough, hardy people. We are the most battle-hardened people in the Commonwealth because we have to deal with these sorts of natural disaster events. But when it happens more than twice, you've got to start thinking about how we rebuild communities better. So today this is for you, and we're very pleased to have been able to fight on your behalf to make sure we get the biggest and best possible package to support recovery of this community. Some of these communities have been impacted, as I've said, across the southeast multiple times over a decade. The water that fell on Brisbane and cities like Ipswich was greater than the 1974 flood. So this is a very big flooding event indeed. And I want to thank the local representatives who I know have been out here in the streets, in the suburbs, helping people recover. So now what we'll do is we'll work with the federal government to finalise the guidelines for that package. We'll try and do that in as quickly as possible. And I know through the leadership of the Queensland Reconstruction Authority, which is a nation-leading, in fact a world-leading recovery and resilience agency to deal with natural disasters, I know we'll put together the best possible package to support our friends here, our fellow Queenslanders, and to get their communities back together as quickly as possible. So with that I might hand over to Lance to say a few words, Milton, and then we're happy to take any questions after that. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Is this coming live?
I'd like to pay tribute to the strength, grit and determination and resilience of my local community, which has been on display all the way through this terrible, terrible flood event that we have been through. We welcome the fact that Scott Morrison's no has turned into a yes. We wish that it had never been a no in the first place. The answer to co-funding our $740 million flood recovery package should always have been a yes in the first place. It should have been, yes, we will help you build back better. Yes, we will help you raise your house out of a flood zone. Yes, we will help you with the buyback scheme. Yes, we will help you build back with flood-resistant materials. There is a question as to why, after 3 weeks, the Prime Minister has decided to change his mind, after taking 3 weeks to think about it, 3 weeks to say no, to now turn around quite quickly and say yes. That is 3 weeks of lost opportunity. That is 3 weeks of lost time and lost certainty that our community and 40,000 households, flood-affected households across Queensland need to be able to take the decisions and plan for the future and take the next steps in their recovery. Thank you.
About a month or so ago, this street and the surrounding areas were completely smashed and inundated. People's lost their entire lives, and I also want to echo the Acting Premier's comments and words of support for the residents who have banded together. This is a tight-knit community. It's people who are really strong, but floods test and do test our community. So I want to thank the Queensland Government, in particular the Acting Premier and Treasurer, and powerful advocates like Lance McCallum, who have been stepping up and making sure that our community isn't left behind. Sadly, it's always the same with this Prime Minister. Although we've seen a backblip today, we need to be working together. We need to be working in a spirit of cooperation, because at the end of the day, this is about people's lives and this is about helping people. So thank you from the bottom of this community's heart for making sure that this package is going to be delivered, that we will help people rebuild their lives, to make sure that they have the options before them. When I was here yesterday, the heartbreak amongst residents was palpable. But we've seen this backflip now. We've seen the Prime Minister back down because of one thing: people power. Queenslanders have delivered this package, and I'm so pleased now to see that local residents here in one of the worst affected flooded electorates in Queensland will now get the justice and support that they deserve.
Thanks, Milton. Well said. Okay, happy to take questions on that.
You say this is ground zero, so I mean, how many times do you think you would qualify for this program?
Well, we'll work through that, but obviously there are a number of elements to the program, so
That is a very, very interesting twist there, because the news that we were just carrying forward before was that the Prime Minister has rejected the matching of the funding for rebuilding of that area, and now he has, and it was very timely that that live feed came across right when we were on to that other news about the Prime Minister rejecting. But right now, as we've heard from this live coverage, that he has now agreed to match the state government's contribution towards rebuilding. What it will involve is, some buyback of some homes which will never be repaired, irreparable. So, so there's good things coming out of that. So, yep, wonderful to see that, even though it's taken a little while, but finally they are there. And as Milton Dick mentioned, that it is people power. People made it happen. Well, right now, let's go to Sydney, where a lot more rain has been forecast.
Good morning, Miriam. I'm sure a very busy night for forecasters. What did you see while we were sleeping?
Yeah, well, very heavy rainfall continuing about the central and southern New South Wales coasts. Rainfall totals were heaviest between Sydney and stretching down towards Merimbula. We saw rainfall totals between 50 and 100 millimetres since 9 o'clock yesterday in these areas, with some locations recording rainfall in excess of 150 millimetres. You mentioned one such location yourself. So very heavy rain continuing. So we do still have that severe weather warning in place for heavy rainfall. Now that stretches down the New South Wales coast from Newcastle to Bega, and it covers the adjacent land areas stretching back towards the ranges as well. So within that warning area, continuing today, we could see 6-hourly rainfall totals reaching between 60 and 100 millimetres, possibly even reaching around 140 millimetres near the coast. So it's not over yet. We are continuing to see this heavy rainfall, which is leading not just to exacerbated riverine flooding. We do have some moderate to major flood warnings current for the Hawkesbury Nepean and also the Georges River, and some minor flood warnings surrounding that. But also it is leading to some flash flooding, which is cutting off roads and can very quickly damage people's homes, businesses and properties. So the risk is ongoing, is the message here today, and it's critical to keep an eye on the Bureau's website for updates to the forecasts and warnings, but also to stay in touch with your local emergency services to know how to respond to the risk.
Those rainfall rates have been pretty incredible for some. I think in Cronulla it was more than 100 millimetres in as little as 3 hours. Now we've got these storms inland as well, causing some heavy falls there. Is it likely that we'll see some of that heavy rain easing later today, though?
Look, the heavy rain closer to the coast will be easing late today and overnight tonight, tending more to scattered showers tomorrow. So with the scattered showers, we really see the rainfall rates dropping right off. However, those severe thunderstorms that we're seeing inland today will continue to be a risk through this afternoon and evening, and again tomorrow afternoon and evening. They are being warned for at the moment, so they are severe thunderstorms producing possibly heavy rainfall and severe hailstones. So these are going to continue both today and tomorrow afternoon. They're not really going to be moving to those central and southern coastal areas, but they will be moving towards the northeast part of New South Wales, which has already seen significant flood damage over the previous months. So heavy rainfall associated with thunderstorms is unlikely to lead directly to exacerbated riverine flooding, but it is quite likely that we'll see some flash flooding with these thunderstorms, so the storm's just dropping a lot of rain very quickly. So definitely still a significant risk associated with these storms both this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon in that more northeastern part of New South Wales.
New South Wales has just absolutely copped a battering. And there's also hazardous surf warnings on at the moment for today. Miriam, the Bureau is saying that La Nina's on the long tail to finally being over. Are we going to see more of these sorts of systems in the coming months, though?
Yeah, well, you're right. Excuse me. La Nina is on the way out. We do expect it to return to a more neutral phase during autumn. However, we cannot rule out the possibility that we will continue to see a few more of these rain events because we do just sometimes get these perfect setups that give us, unfortunately, a lot of rainfall. In this case, it's an upper level trough interacting with some very strong easterlies. So even though La Nina is on the way out, as you've said, it cannot, unfortunately, spell the end of these severe rain events. It is possible we may see some more going into autumn.
It's not news any of us want to hear. And with cyclone season still going, Miriam, thank you very much for your time this morning. And pass our thanks to all of the forecasters as well. Fingers crossed you've got some good news for us soon.
And thank you very much for that report. And right now, as we know, rain has also caused a lot of flooding. Here's some clips which commuters caught on the cameras from DY. So more flooding, but the good news is that it is all be easing by tonight as per that weather report. Well, right now it's time to go to our next news, and after that we will go on to the Daily India report. Well, we know that there has been calls for the carbon footprint reduction. So big companies like BHP and others, what are they doing? How are they gearing up for that? And will they be able to meet the target? Or are they meeting the target or in fact ahead of the target?
At this property near Kojonup, 3 hours southeast of Perth, the Thorne family has learned to live with the ebbs and flows of farming production.
Our family came from South Australia in 1928. And I'm now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for fourth generation here. My kids are the fifth.
Within a matter of months, the family will be harvesting a resource of a different kind. There are plans to build 18 of the biggest wind turbines yet installed in WA at a height of up to 200 metres. The power generated will be sold to Nickel West, an arm of mining giant BHP.
It is quite windy, and interestingly, yeah, we're sitting here today at ground level and it's quite windy, but if you actually go 250, 125 metres up into the sky, it just gets windier.
Construction is due to start mid-year, and the turbines should be operational by the end of 2023. Industry experts say the plans are a sign of the times.
Businesses like BHP across Australia are moving ahead with their decarbonisation plans. They're actually getting ahead of the policymakers.
While the federal government continues to defend its record on climate change, BHP says the agreement is part of the company's broader push to become carbon neutral by 2050.
90% of our refined nickel goes into the battery sector, and that's obviously going straight into our electric vehicles.
Observers say the pressure for companies to act is coming from financial markets, shareholders, customers and communities. But they caution the task of decarbonising the economy is huge and will take decades and billions of dollars to achieve.
We are entering a decade of massive transformation in the electricity landscape, being driven by these decarbonisation initiatives of every major corporate in Australia.
At the farm in Kojonup, Lockie Thorne says the risks from global warming are a worry, but he's hoping the wind farm can be the start of something better.
Being farmers, we want to leave an asset here for our kids to run as well. So, which is where the where the renewable energy comes in. We want to leave the world better than when we got to it, really.
It's a goal they hope everyone can share. Daniel Mercer, ABC News.
And that's a wonderful news. The wind farming out there, of course, there have always been some protests and some things. People don't like seeing them, but that is a sign of times. The sign of times is also the EVs. EVs meaning electric vehicles. So there have been calls to boost the infrastructure so that more and more electric vehicles are on the road. One area in which India is moving ahead quite quickly is this area. Let's see what's happening here in Australia.
It takes a long time to drive anywhere in the Australian outback. This part of Australia has long been the domain of diesel-powered utes and petrol four-wheel drives. But as the electric vehicle revolution takes hold around the world, it's slowly making its way to the heart of the country.
In the first week of owning this car, we went from Brisbane straight down the east coast right to the most southern tip of Victoria, and then came up through South Australia. So we did about 8,000 kilometres in the first week.
Hunter Murray is the Vice President of the Australian Electric Vehicle Association. His electronics shop sells solar panels and batteries made by Tesla and other companies. The self-described tech geek has installed the fastest EV charger in the Northern Territory on the side of his shop in Alice Springs. It's all powered by a solar array on his roof, backed up by batteries. Here it takes around 2 hours to charge for a 400-kilometre range. Hunter Murray uses his electric vehicle as part of his business, servicing remote electronic setups like mobile phone towers, often travelling hundreds of kilometres a day. But once he's out of town, the only place to charge is at remote locations like this, an hour's drive south of Alice Springs.
We've proven that we can drive EVs around Australia and long distance. That's not a problem. It's just the time to make it, to do that. We might need roughly double the time as normal because of the lack of charging. Once we get that charging infrastructure up, get it fast, there's no excuse. Yeah, we're just getting back to town today and we thought we'd drop in and get a bit of a charge out of you.
Yeah, good. Peter Murphy, who's better known just as Spud, owns this roadhouse.
Right, how's the jiggy going?
Oh,
Good?
not a problem, mate.
After some encouragement from Hunter, he put in an EV charging station a few years ago. But it's slow. To charge 400 kilometres of driving range could take 5 hours.
Why did you want to put one in? Because I think it's the way of the future. Down into the generator shed here, we're going to check one motor before we start it.
Like most remote service stations, Stewart's Well is a long way from any electricity grid and has to create its own power using diesel generators.
We've got power.
There's plenty of sunshine, and he says he'd like to install solar panels and batteries.
The advantage is moving with the future and cutting the diesel costs. Cutting down on diesel costs alone would be phenomenal.
How much do you spend on diesel?
Oh, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. There's another bonus too. You've got the atmosphere. You haven't got diesel smoke going into the air.
Fast chargers like those found in big cities can charge a car to travel 400 kilometres in just 20 minutes, depending on the make. But installing one could cost upwards of $150,000, and a new solar and battery system to power it could be $500,000.
All right, bud. Catch you after. Take care. The more vehicles we have, though, the more warranty there's going to be for that.
In Alice Springs, one big organisation is starting to transition its fleet to electric vehicles. The Central Land Council supports Indigenous people in the southern half of the Northern Territory. Its fleet of 120 vehicles covers an area larger than France. Only one car is electric.
But we're also planning to have another 2 electric vehicles in the fleet within the next 6 months.
The Land Council's EV fleet will be powered by a huge solar array on the roof of their headquarters. Francine McCarthy says although the electric vehicles cost more upfront than a comparable new petrol vehicle, that should be offset by charging the car for free.
The charging infrastructure, if that's placed in locations that are outside of Alice Springs, then the Land Council will be able to use these electric vehicles to go further afield, say up to Tennant Creek or down to Eldunda and Uluru.
Sign of times to come, and good sign as well, because we're looking at saving the environment, so that's wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India. In our first story, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to visit India later in April 2022, as the two nations will focus on deepening bilateral ties and conclude a free trade pact soon. A flurry of heads of states, foreign and trade ministers have been visiting India lately as the world emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic. But the visits have taken a new significance against the backdrop of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine crisis. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is expected to visit India in April 2022. Though official dates have not been announced, reports indicate that the British Prime Minister is heading to India, and the visit is expected to focus on deepening bilateral ties between the two countries and concluding a free trade pact soon. In 2021, the visit of the British leader had to be postponed twice due to the surge in COVID-19 cases. The first time it had to be rescheduled was in January, when he was expected to be the chief guest at Republic Day, and there was a surge in cases in his country. The second time was in the same year, when the number of cases had gone up and the visit had to be put off. However, in May 2021, during the India-UK virtual summit, the leaders of both sides agreed virtually on a 2030 roadmap and focused on defence, innovation, science and technology, trade, education, health and climate change. Both sides have agreed to elevate the status of the bilateral relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership. The two countries are keen to close trade agreements at the earliest, as this is expected to double the trade between India and the UK by 2030. Presently, the trade between the two is touching £23 billion a year. The UK is a very important trade partner of India, and the two countries are negotiating a trade agreement under which the British Scotch is likely to get access to the Indian market. During Johnson's visit, the two sides are also expected to talk about the new military alliance, Australia, the UK and the US. In the last week of March 2022, UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss was in New Delhi, the focus being to urge India to take a stronger position against Russia. This was her second visit in 13 months as a Foreign Secretary and the third as Secretary of State. Earlier, in anticipation of the British PM's visit to India, a blueprint for defence and diplomacy was released by the government of that country. And in an official statement issued by the British High Commission in New Delhi, the 100-page blueprint outlined the country's international priorities for defence and diplomacy and made the most comprehensive review of its security, defence, development and foreign policy since the Cold War. India has condemned the civilian killings in Bucha and backed the UN Secretary General's call for an independent probe into the mass killings. For the first time, India made a strong public statement condemning the war in Ukraine. India on April 5th backed the UN Secretary General's call for an independent probe into civilian killings in the Ukrainian town of Bucha and condemned the killings unequivocally but without naming and shaming any side. At the meeting in UNSC on Ukraine, India's permanent envoy to UN, T.S. Tirumurthy, stated the situation in Ukraine has not shown any significant improvement since the Council last discussed the issue. The security situation has only deteriorated, as well as its humanitarian consequences. Recent reports of civilian killings in Bucha are deeply disturbing. We unequivocally condemn these killings and support the call for an independent investigation. On April 3rd, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for an independent investigation into the mass killings of civilians in the Ukrainian town of Bucha in the suburbs of Kyiv. While the West has blamed Russian forces for the killings, the Russian Ministry of Defense has termed Ukrainian allegations as a false flag operation by the Ukrainian army. White House Press Secretary to the President of USA, Jen Psaki, has said that it will not be in India's interest to further increase its energy imports from Russia. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has stated that India should not increase Russian energy and commodity purchases. Days after the US Deputy NSA had warned India against trade deals with Russia, the Biden admin reiterated the message. In a counter to that, the Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had confirmed that India has already started buying the cheaper Russian oil on offer. She said that India has received quite a number of barrels, which is good for 3-4 days supply, and this will continue. Asserting that it was important to keep India's overall interest in mind, Sitharaman said that she, as well as External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, had explained the country's position on the issue. Jen Psaki said it is not in India's interest to accelerate or increase imports of Russian energy. The White House Press Secretary noted India's purchase of Russian oil only constituted 1 to 2% of its total energy imports. The US government has maintained that it's a country's individual decision to ban imports to put pressure on Moscow. Hospitality major IHG is planning to double its presence in India as guests return and the industry recovers from the pandemic blues. Intercontinental Hotels Group is planning to double its presence in India over the next 3 to 5 years and bring more of its luxury brands like Regent and Kimpton to India. According to reports, the group's properties in India saw higher occupancies in January-March 2022 over the same period of pre-pandemic 2019. While average tariffs in the period here were lower by 15 to 20% over the same time in 2019 for the group that runs Holiday Inn and Crown Plaza brands among others, it expects rates to recover by the year end. IHG currently has 41 properties across 5 brands in India and is going to open about 40 more in the next 3 to 5 years. IHG will bring more luxury brands here like Regent and Kimpton, premium brand Voco and the recently launched Vignette collection. Since mid-2020, domestic travel has sustained hotel demand and now international inbound travel will also begin to India. Business meeting demand from small and medium Indian companies is also back to pre-COVID times. Like most big hotel chains, IHG had also laid off some of its staffers in India during COVID and at present has 5,000 employees. The UK-headquartered hospitality company founded in 1777 came up with unique cost-cutting ways during the pandemic to support property owners during COVID that included giving them software to optimize utilization of manpower, a key expense. IHG's 28 Holiday Inn and Holiday Inn Express in India represent 70% of IHG's operating portfolio. There are 10 Crown Plazas and 3 luxury properties, 2 Intercontinentals and a 6th Senses. IHG is bringing its 6th brand to India with Staybridge Suites and now more will follow suit. Apart from India seeing a strong recovery, the hotel business in some Middle East markets like Dubai and Saudi Arabia has now exceeded 2019 levels. In India, the average occupancy till 2021 end was 65 to 70%, with Goa, Kolkata and Mumbai cities having over 80%. Tariffs in India are 15 to 20% lower than pre-COVID times but will climb back by the year end. Indian-American vocalist Falguni Shah, popularly known as Falu, won the Best Children's Music Album Award for her album A Colorful World at the Grammy Awards 2022. Making India proud on the global stage, vocalist Falguni Shah, aka Falu, won the Best Children's Music Album Award for her album A Colourful World at the Grammy Awards 2022. Taking to her Instagram handle and sharing some ceremony photos, she said, "I have no words to describe today's magic. What an honor to perform for the opening number of the Grammy premiere ceremony and then take home a statue on behalf of all the incredible people who worked on A Colourful World." Thanking the Recording Academy, she continued her post, "We are humbled and thank the Recording Academy for this tremendous recognition. Thank you." Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended his wishes to Falguni Shah as he took to Twitter and shared a message for her on the early morning of Tuesday, April 5th. Congratulations to Falguni Shah on winning the award for the Best Children's Music Album at the Grammys. Wishing her the very best for her future endeavors. @Falu Music. Born in Mumbai and now based out of New York, Falu was even nominated in the same category in 2019 for her previous album called Falu's Bazaar. After the mega success of KGF Chapter 1, fans are anxiously awaiting the release of KGF Chapter 2. In the UK, more than 5,000 tickets were sold within the first 12 hours of pre-booking sales. The movie titled KGF 2 starring Yash and Sanjay Dutt is one of the most anticipated films of the year, and fans across the globe have been waiting for it ever since the announcement of a second part being made. It's evidently showing in the pre-booking sales of the tickets. The film seems all set to break various records as it is already setting some trends. Days before its release in the UK, where the pre-booking counter has opened, the film managed to sell 5,000 tickets in just 12 hours, which is the highest ever for any Indian film. The electrifying performance by Yash has been waiting for a long time since the release of KGF Chapter 1. And this is just the beginning. It would be interesting to see what more wonders the film creates in the future. Releasing nationwide on April 14, 2022 in Kannada, Telugu, Hindi, Tamil and Malayalam, KGF Chapter 2 is written and directed by Prashant Neel and produced by Vijay Kirangadur under the Homeable Films banner. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report.
By mid-May, from the last election, I said we would run a term, do the job and go to the Australian people. And so that's when the election is due, and I think we'll be calling it soon. And when we do, then I think there'll be a real opportunity, because this election is an opportunity for the Australian public to take a good look. I mean, you've seen me, you've seen what we've done, you've seen how we've saved 40,000 lives, got 2 million people into work. You've seen how we've ensured Australia could come through this pandemic strongly compared to countries all around the world and be able to set Australia up for the future with infrastructure investments like this, investments in skills, investments in training, very important here, particularly on the Central Coast, investing in those skills and training, supporting the essential services, but with a strong plan for the future. Now, my opponent in this election, Anthony Albanese, is a blank page. He's not a small target, he is a complete blank page. And at a time of great uncertainty, considerable uncertainty, not just in the economy, but also in terms of national security, a blank page is no answer to the problems that Australians face. You've seen our plan. You've seen it detailed in budgets. You've seen it detailed year after year, and the forward plans about how we'll continue to be strong. Anthony Albanese has been ducking the questions for 3 years. And in this election campaign, he'll have to answer them. Yesterday, I noticed he didn't like answering questions and had the questioner removed. Thanks very much, everyone. Great to be here.
Mr. Morrison,
thank you. No, I have to go.
And that was the tail end of the press conference at Long, and as we have heard from the Prime Minister that he will let everyone know as soon as the announcement's made. Well, of course, we will all know, but still no official announcements or the date. So, he's still yet to make that trip all the way to the Governor's house to seek the permission and make that announcement. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful having your company. Let's have a very quick look at Farm Sanction's events that are going to be taking place, but also a word from our sponsor.
GlobeNet Realty,
GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
Akash Lodhia proudly presents the Ghazal Maestro Padma Shri Pankaj Udas live in concert at the prestigious Sydney Opera House. 4th September 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Pankaj Udas celebrating 40 years of his musical journey in a one and only mega concert accompanied by his musicians from India. Be there to witness the living legend Pankaj Udas live in concert to celebrate his musical milestone. Tickets on sale now from www.sydneyoperahouse.com.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment today. It's been wonderful having your company. And there's some interesting news there with the Prime Minister. We began with the Prime Minister, we ended with the Prime Minister in today's segment. The official point at this point in time is no announcement as yet, but we know the two possible dates are either the 14th of May or the 21st of May. We'll keep you updated and posted. Once again, it's been wonderful having your company. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.